Discover Bangladesh, the dirtiest and poorest country in the world. This nation is located in South Asia and has a rich history, having been under British colonial rule for a long period. It encompasses both the Indian subcontinent's tradition and Buddhist heritage. Additionally, Islamic culture also plays an important role in Bangladeshi society. Although Bangladesh has a considerable area of approximately 148,000 square kilometers, the country faces a significant challenge according to the 2020 census. The official population of this country is 169 million people, meaning the population density is extremely high, making Bangladesh a complex country with several issues related to overpopulation and pressure on available resources. Similar to India, in this country, there is a great concentration of people and a high poverty rate. If you want to experience the atmosphere of Bangladesh, the country is known for its tropical beaches and lush forests. However, visitors will face other challenges, as Bangladesh is known for the abundance of flies, so those planning a trip there should include insect repellent in their luggage. Dhaka is the capital of Bangladesh and also the most developed urban area in terms of quality of life in the country. It is also the most populous city, with a population of about 23 million inhabitants, so not many people want to visit Bangladesh. But some obstacles may prevent them from making the trip, as Bangladesh is a country prone to earthquakes and floods. So, don't be surprised if you encounter an earthquake or other natural phenomena while you're there. The idea of facing a catastrophe similar to a flood in a country where dozens of people are affected by such events can be quite daunting. Bangladesh emerged after the dissolution of Hindu empires in the past. Although they adopted a more Islam-oriented culture from the 12th century, they never managed to separate entirely from India. In fact, during the 1900s, Bangladesh's geography became a place where the Muslim population concentrated in the east and the Hindu population in the west until 1991. This division persisted, and the country faced a challenge in terms of governance despite attempts at reunification and reconstruction over the past 30 years. Bangladesh has been affected by floods and earthquakes that have hampered its recovery. One of the biggest problems contributing to the country's lag is undoubtedly overpopulation. Currently, the official language of Bangladesh is Bengali, and the number of people who speak English fluently in the streets and avenues is quite significant, although some speak English with their own accent, which can make understanding difficult. Additionally, the government of Bangladesh conducts its official correspondence and business negotiations in English, rather than in its native language. Now that we have given an overview of Bangladesh, we can see examples of life in the country. Firstly, it is important to note that Bangladesh is one of the economically poorest nations in the world. Most people earn less than $5 a day, and observing them, it is clear that many do their work in a rudimentary way. The minimum wage in the country is around $95, so the average income in the country is extremely low, making Bangladesh one of the cheapest places for labor on a global scale. It is understandable then that large corporations and international companies are attracted by this opportunity. Many renowned brands always consider the possibility of setting up factories in nations with lower taxes and reduced labor costs to manufacture their products. Many large companies have already adopted this strategy. Numerous prestigious brands have production facilities in the country, send the manufactured products to their stores worldwide, and sell them at significantly lower prices than those of American workers. In Bangladesh, for example, a company can employ between 10 and 15 workers for the same cost. On the other hand, when walking through the streets of the capital Dhaka, it is common to see people of all genders carrying objects on their heads. Often, the lack of access to vehicles forces people to transport heavy loads in this manner. Additionally, in the streets, many tangled cables can be seen, connected to poles and likely intended for telephone and internet services. This scene alone portrays an image that seems to date back at least half a century and highlights the country's infrastructure deficiencies. The traffic flow on the roads of Bangladesh evokes scenes reminiscent of the bustling streets of Vietnam and India, with vehicles constantly moving. A careless walk can significantly increase the risk of being run over by a motorcycle or car, as there are no elevated or underground crossings available for pedestrians, and they face many dangers and challenges when crossing from one side to the other. In many squares, traffic flows in multiple directions, without traffic lights to regulate it, relying on police guidance for control. If you are someone who values tranquility and cannot tolerate constant noise, Bangladesh may prove extremely unsettling, as life there is drastically different from common everyday life. Even when driving on a relatively quiet road, the incessant honking can be bothersome and trigger stress. Public transportation in the countryside often consists of old buses about 20 or 30 years old. The seats on these buses are usually uncomfortable, and public transport is often always overcrowded. For urban transportation, there are bicycles that act as taxis, but unfortunately, these bicycles only operate with human effort and have no motor. The saddest part is that most cyclists are thin men who often carry additional passengers, which can be exhausting and uncomfortable. It is estimated that there are about 30 million of these bicycles in the country, and many people make a living as bicycle taxi drivers. As a result, disputes between cyclists or heated arguments between street vendors are often seen in the squares. The overcrowding, the almost constant chaos at street corners, and the demanding lifestyle make people easily irritable. When exploring the cities and markets of Bangladesh, you may notice that there are many street stalls on almost every corner. Although the sale of food products is common, a cause for concern is that these stalls often appear to lack adequate hygiene, both the stalls and the places where they operate. They usually have an unhygienic appearance, and as a consequence, some vendors show inadequate personal hygiene. As a traveler, you may hesitate to consume food or drinks in Bangladesh for fear of possible health issues. Another thing is that education in this country is practically non-existent, as only 3 out of 10 people can read and write. This low educational level contributes to an extremely limited overall cultural level. Additionally, the cities suffer from high levels of pollution, and the presence of garbage is widespread throughout the country. The problem is exacerbated by the common habit of people spitting in the street at every step, so it is important to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the country you live in. Regardless of the conditions, another aspect that can disturb your peace while traveling in Bangladesh is the excessive attention you receive from people while you are on the road. Regardless of your gender, you may feel that you are being constantly observed in an invasive manner. This is not limited to a sexual context, but can convey the message that they are thinking about how to benefit from you, whether financially or in other ways. Although some may just be curious to see a tourist, it is prudent to exercise some caution even with supposedly trustworthy tour guides. In a country where many people work like slaves for just $3 a day, you must be aware that some people will do everything possible to take advantage of you economically, whether directly or indirectly. So it is essential to act cautiously in your interactions and transactions. If they detect that you are a tourist, be prepared to be charged at least 3 or 4 times more for anything as soon as they identify you as such. If you go without a guide, it is very likely that people will try to take advantage of your unfamiliarity with the Bangladeshi market for products and services. For example, in restaurants, there is no traditional menu. Instead, most kitchens are open so you can see and choose the food being prepared. When you ask for the price of a meal, they often inflate the price considerably. That's just how things are. So what can a visitor do in Bangladesh during a short period? The country offers a variety of temples and museums, with architecture inherited from past empires and the nation's founders. However, it is important to note that entrance to these museums usually has a different price, meaning tourists often pay more than locals. In Bangladesh, it is possible to take boat tours similar to those in Venice, where locals take tourists along the rivers in their own boats and generate income this way. It is noteworthy that in a country where prostitution is tolerated, alcohol consumption is prohibited by social norms. Although it is not an expensive item, its availability is limited in the country due to an imbalance. The social issues emphasized in the country mean that alcohol is not legally sold in stores in Bangladesh, making it practically invisible. One thing you might like is how affordable almost everything is. For example, it is possible to satisfy your hunger in a restaurant for the equivalent of $2. Accommodation in hostels and hotels is equally economical, with rates ranging from $6 to $40, while a 1-bedroom apartment in the city center costs between $25 and $120. If you want to live outside the center, a 1-bedroom apartment costs just $70. In the market, a kilo of chicken breast protein, for example, costs an average of $3, and the average monthly market expenditure will depend on each person's lifestyle, which can vary between $50 and $150 per month. So, It can be said that life in Bangladesh is economically advantageous, although the quality of health and hygiene is a topic of debate. Something charming is that when locals see a foreigner, they usually gather around, greet you cordially, and ask you to take photos of them. In Bangladesh, one feels truly special and appreciated. It should be mentioned that Bangladesh is consistently ranked among the top 5 fastest-growing countries in the world, and in recent years, economic experts believe that the country is not destined for a gradual decline, but for rapid enrichment, leveraging its large population. Many well-educated people in Bangladesh share this belief, and when they encounter tourists, express positive opinions about the country. Despite these advances, it is important to note that in Bangladesh, with a population of 169 million people, many struggle to survive according to unofficial estimates. Almost 5 million people live on the streets of the country in conditions of destitution. It is a daunting task to reintegrate so many homeless people into society and help them become productive citizens for the country. Even those who have a place to call home often live in deplorable conditions, residing in makeshift housing areas that can't even be considered proper slums. Their homes lack 4 walls surrounding them, and often lack sanitary facilities like bathrooms or showers. These people get their sustenance from discarded food that falls on the streets or is thrown away in markets, and they often share these scarce resources with their children. Those without financial resources have to resort to precarious means of transport, like jumping onto moving trains, often clinging to the carriages or trying to enter through the train windows. Many parts of the country present an image that reminds one of a nation just emerging from armed conflict. An intriguing but unsurprising phenomenon is that a tiny group of people in Bangladesh enjoys a much more luxurious quality of life than the general population. There is a sense that this small elite exploits the country's scarce wealth to the detriment of the vast majority of the population. Bangladesh is generally ranked as one of the worst countries to live in the world, a harsh reality because the high population density combined with widespread poverty hinders sustainable development. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your like and your comment. See you in the next video.